Hey, so the plan for today's video is not necessarily a review or a overview of the Polaris Ranger. I feel like there's a ton of those out there, but more so how I plan on us seeing this for a lot of our outdoor adventures, deer hunting, duck hunting, getting out and camping on our private farm, and then public land as well too. So a few things that I've done to the rig already, some reasons behind why I've done those, and then some thoughts for the future. And then more than maybe anything else is I would love to hear from you guys too. What have you done to your rigs, whether Polaris, Can-Am, Honda, Kawasaki, John Deere, any of those, as my research on the internet at times yields a lot of really good useful information for outdoorsmen using buggies and rigs like this, and sometimes not. So I'm going to go through a few things now that I've done already, and then we'll talk about what some of my plans are, and then give you guys an opportunity to share some of your thoughts and things you've done too. So thanks for watching. So first things first, it is the 570 midsize. My hope was, and we actually have a crew 1000 down at the lake, 900 or 1000, I can't really remember, but we keep it down there for transporting from the house to down at the boats and the dock, loading it with coolers and with people. Getting a little bit of help today. So anyways, my hope originally, or my goal, was to get one of the bigger ones. They're now 1000, a lot of the crews, but the 570, and this is the midsize, and I'll explain why I decided I wanted to go with the midsize. On our property, maybe a lot of your guys' property too, there is there's twists and turns. There's a reason we're not taking full-size pickups down there. So the narrowness, if that's a word, of the 570 midsize really caught my attention. So technically, from the producer, from Polaris, it's a 4-seater. So as you can see, I opted to go with the bench on the front and the bench on the rear, just in case you needed to squeeze a couple more people, of course, in just a safe situation. But one of the first things I did was research, and there was not a lot of information on this. But what does it look like maybe to have another option for a person or two, of course, you know, on flat level ground, going nice and slow, keeping it safe. What does it look like to have an option for a couple more people to comfortably and safely sit in the back without sitting on one of these sides and potentially falling off here? So it is the crew. It's the 570 midsize, which makes it a little more narrow, but a great just homemade option, as you can tell, without any drilling or anything like that, to potentially have one or two more people if need be. So another thing I opted for is, since we're out a lot hunting, fishing, camping, early morning, late night, and all 4 seasons, especially out a lot outdoors when it's cold and the weather's not as good, I opted for the full-size windshield. My original thought was to go to glass, just because I thought it would hold up better, worrying about limbs scratching it and that sort of thing. The lady at the dealership here locally, who did a great job, really recommended this hard-coated poly. So too soon to really determine if it'll hold up to the scratches and things that were my concern to begin with. But to this point, it's extremely clear. It's not cheap plastic like we've had on other Polarises. Seems to hold up really well, cleans up nice. So I'm anxious to see how that holds up, but absolutely critical for those cold morning rides, so you're not crying and getting all the things from the cold air just hitting you in the face, and then of course for any rain or bad weather or that sort of thing. For the winch on this thing, it's a Harbor Freight Badlands 2,500 pound capacity winch. They do make them a lot bigger, but in all honesty, I already had this one. Seems to bolt up nice with the kit that I was able to secure at the local dealership, as opposed to a hardwired remote, which at some point I think I might actually end up preferring. This has a wireless remote, which is really handy for being able to operate it from inside the rig to out here to standing back safely behind a tree. But my thought is, I know me, I know my crew, that thing's liable to get destroyed or lost at some point. But to this point, for us operating a lot of that soft areas of our farm in West Central Missouri and other areas, seems critical to have a winch just in case you ever get yourself in a bad spot. So Badlands 2,500 pound winch with a wireless remote rigged up right here in front. So maybe the thing I'm most proud of, because it's the most homemade, But in all seriousness, mud flaps. I know our West Central Missouri farm, they're along the Osage, it's river bottom. So it's boggy, it's muddy. We've already almost had a pickup stuck down there and stuck. Lucky to get it out, but not really worried about this thing getting stuck with the 4-wheel drive and the nice tires, 2-inch lift, which I'll talk about a little bit more, the winch and all those things, but really just keeping mud off you outside of the inside of the rig. Just keeping it outside of the cab. My thought was, hey, what's a good way to do this for maybe an inexpensive option, just to see if I like the setup and if I like the design. So these are actually truck bed mats. No, I take that back. These are semi-truck mud flaps or rock flaps, sourced here locally. There's a truck shop. I would encourage you guys to look it up if you like these. But a great material that is a little bit pliable. So if you do hit a branch or a limb or something, I think they're more liable to bend than just to break or snap off or damage your rig. They're put on with a more casting type screw that has a little bit of backing. I'll show you a little bit more in a second. But I ended up doing these on both fronts and both rears, and I'll explain the rears a little bit more too. So on the rear, you can get a little bit better idea of these installation screws and how they worked. So far, they've done a great job. My goal was, if they got hung up on something, to not destroy the actual body of the rig itself, but rather for them to bend or just back those screws out, because that's not that big of a deal. But here you can get a little bit better idea or better look of the material. Smooth on one side and rigid on the other. I think it gives it a great look. It's easily trimmable and shapeable, which was really important to me too, because these are bought as like 20 or 24 by 36 inch. So you can cut them down to size, and they're really inexpensive. On the back, something that I mentioned earlier was the back was especially important to me, because it's really easy to see how this tire is going to throw mud directly up underneath here. Without this here, believe it or not, on this Polaris model, this is completely open. The battery's located right behind this, as well as a fuse box and a lot of other things that just don't seem that great to have mud and water and rocks thrown directly onto. So these actually closed up this entire section, keeping some mud and water, a lot of that stuff, at least the worst of it. Of course it's gonna get in there, but it keeps the worst of it out of those critical internal areas of the machine, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think. And I think they're gonna end up doing a great job for us at a relatively inexpensive price. So lighting, just like the windshield, being out early mornings, late nights, lighting is really important. I know that from my duck hunting boat, even headlamps when you're walking through the woods, things that if you guys are outdoorsmen, I'm sure you're familiar with. For a number of different reasons, lighting is going to be really important on this rig. So I opted for the 42-inch curved light beam bar from Amazon. It's a Nightlight inexpensive light bar. My thoughts were, I've used them in the past. They are inexpensive, and there's brands out there that are a lot better. I have a lot nicer one on my duck boat. But sizing is really important on these, as well as positioning. Not something that gets beat up in the branches all the time. And with this light bar positioning, my fear is it is going to get beat up by branches a lot. So if nothing else, this is an inexpensive test run to see, hey, do we like this position? Do I like this size light bar? Do I like the spot and flood beam combo? So inexpensively, if it works out, awesome. If it doesn't work out, it'll likely be a reinvestment in a nicer light bar experience. So let's jump to the back, and I'll show you the light setup back there as well too. On the back, we've got two Nightlight 2-inch cubes. In the rear, a big thing for us is two things. One, on storage and getting gear bags and blind bags and all the stuff that outdoorsmen have. Being able to organize that in the morning without just absolutely throwing stuff everywhere and losing stuff, and keeping it organized. The second big part of that for the front as well as the back is locating, setting up, and then adjusting our spreads when we're duck hunting and goose hunting. So for me, the ability to park the machine facing away or towards the spread, it makes sense to be able to back up and throw and cast water over a large area on the rear while you unload decoys and all those things and get that spread set up and dialed in just right. So again, I'll link these in the description below, but inexpensive, testing the positioning as well as the product. If they don't work, we'll reinvest with something nicer. But wired to the front, just like the light bar, but on separate switches so we can operate them separately. Two LED Nightlight cubes. and I think they're gonna work out great. A quick plug for these tie down positions. So I'm not even sure of the brand. I'll try to link it in the description below. But essentially they just tighten into these manufactured positions within the rig that it already comes with. So no drilling, none of that. They just tighten down within. And to this point, they seem to hold up really well. And on this 570 mid-size crew, they do not come with tie downs on the inside. So that's a big thing. If you're strapping anything down or overloaded with gear, I think these things are going to be well worth the investment. I think they're super affordable as well too.